Mr. Praveen Joseph, Information Security Specialist, to come on stage.
Thank you. Morning. I said good morning. People, take your time to settle down, guys, at the back. Okay. How's the volume? Is it too loud or not? Little down? Okay. This is okay? Perfect. Okay. Very good morning to everybody again. Thank you. My name is Praveen Joseph, and I have 45 minutes from now, so that's a little past 12:30, in case the lady didn't know that. A little past 12:30, so I have 45 minutes, within which time I hope to cover this topic called Security Challenges in Emerging Technologies. Anybody has any idea what this means? I'm talking about emerging technologies. Is it going to be a technical session, or is it going to be just high level or somewhere in the middle? Any thoughts? Okay, probably we'll get some thoughts as we go forward. Before we move, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Praveen Joseph. I work with Cognizant, but this session is something that I'm giving as an individual. It has nothing to do with my organization or previous organizations I've been associated with. I've been in security for 7 years. On August 15th, that'll be my 7th year. It's been a good ride. In security, my focus is primarily on risk management and compliance. I've had a lot of good experiences moving around the world, essentially. My former colleague and good friend Deepak is also here. We've done a lot of audits, a lot of assessments, a lot of consulting assignments with organizations in, I think, 13 to 14 countries. It's been a great ride. And prior to my InfoSec career, I did a master's from the UK in Warwick Business School. And prior to my master's, I did a BE from this campus. So yes, I'm your senior essentially. I passed out of Crescent in 2006. And since then, it's really good for me to be here. It's something like a homecoming. And I have to thank NCDRC and Nalini in particular for this opportunity. Thank you. All right, so disclaimer, this is probably what I should have started with. Everything that comes over the next few slides, as I said earlier, it's my own personal views, my own personal experiences. It has nothing to do with organizations that I'm working with or have been associated with. Bottom line is you can't sue me based on what I'm going to say over the next few slides, okay? So, a couple of ground rules. As you know, questions are welcome. I know you don't need another classroom, right? You guys, most of you are students here. I think 90% of you are students here. I saw the show of hands this morning. We've had enough classrooms this entire week, this whole year. So it's not something like a classroom session, it's just an interaction, right? And you must be having some knowledge of your own as well. Please do feel free to share it. Phones, when I was in Crescent, it used to be Crescent Engineering College back then. It wasn't a deemed university, now it's a university. We used to have our professors, take charge of our phones. If we were caught in class using, texting or messaging someone, we didn't have WhatsApp back then. Do they still do that? Okay, so they still do that, that's good. So I don't plan to seize your phones if I see anybody using it, but just keep the volume down, don't be too loud. All right, session objectives. What is the session all about? As I said earlier, we're going to get into the session as such. Intro, everything is done. We're going to be, the first word is key, essentially, exploratory. I'm not going to tell you this is how things are, this is how things are going to be, because it's emergent technologies. You should have paid a lot of attention to the first slide. I'll blow it up again for you. Emerging technologies, right? So it's all about how things are going to be in the future. That's what we're looking at. So I can't tell you this is how it is going to be. I'm just going to try to project. And that's where I said your knowledge is also key, because you might have some inputs. Bottom line is I just want everybody to, at the end of the day, the take-home message, if you have some idea on, okay, these are the opportunities that are coming up from a security perspective, this is something that I can work towards, something that I can tap into. There's a lot of challenges and opportunities, more challenges and therefore opportunities. And I hope all of us have some take-home message after the session in terms of what we can take home, right? Plan is, this is how, it's 70 plus slides, by the way. I spent quite a lot of weekends working on this. But don't worry, it's not very wordy. In fact, most of the slides are just pictures. I've just, at a very high level, the session is just broken into two parts. Evolution of InfoSec and, I'm sorry? Someone say something? Okay. So we're looking at how InfoSec has actually evolved over the past few years, past few decades, and where it's going over the next few years. The reason I wanted to start with the evolution is to know your future, you've got to look at the past, right? So we're looking at a few earlier trends, and based on those, we're trying to project where things are going to go ahead in the future. Okay, so let's go, no time to waste. Evolution of InfoSec. We had a cybersecurity conference today, right now, and I know there's a huge number of professionals here, security professionals, but from the students, CIA, it's not the Central Intelligence Agency. When you talk about security, the most basic tenets of any security subject starts with the CIA. Can someone tell me what they stand for? The students. Wonderful, excellent, perfect. So I don't need to get into that. Everybody knows what C stands for, what C means. Give me an example of a piece of data that has to be kept confidential at all points in time. Password, perfect. Anything else? You guys are looking for jobs. Nope. I want as many people as possible to look at my resume. That's not supposed to be confidential. Your salary. Once you start working, right, you learn as you go ahead. You don't want people to know what your salary is. Your PINs. People who actually have ATM cards. PIN, it's a form of a password again, so technically it's been said earlier. So these are the kind of things that you want to keep confidential all the time. Integrity. Someone said resume, right? I don't want people to be able to modify my resume. When I say I've worked in a particular company and did this for 4 or 5 years, I don't want someone else to go and say, no, it's only 3 years. It's a piece of data, essentially, or a file, that I want to be maintained integral at all points in time. Anything else that you want to be kept, in terms of integrity, never modified by an unauthorized person. Examples. I'm sorry. Perfect. That's the exact example that I also use a lot when I come to this slide. Bank account numbers. Again, in terms of salary. I want the money to come to my account, not to someone else's account, right? Perfect. Bank account numbers. Availability. That's a picture of a database server that's gone down. Sorry. Picture of a server that has gone down. SBI, for example, they have a core banking application. Server goes down for 1 day. I can't imagine how many crores of rupees business downtime would be faced by the bank. Right? So this is the kind of thing that I want to be looking at when I'm a security professional, CINA, right? But this is how it is today. It wasn't always this way. Now that's a picture of hieroglyphics. Everybody knows about that, I'm pretty sure. There are cases where, ancient Egyptian people have actually etched some confidential messages on the tombs of people who passed away, probably, pharaohs or some important people. It was not for the common man in those times to understand what those messages were. Probably, messages to God or someone, the sun god, telling him or her the good things about this particular individual. I don't know. So cryptography, which is the study of sending a message in secret to someone else, who is the only person who's authorized to find a way to actually decrypt. I mean, that's a different subject altogether. This was one of the core facets of InfoSec back in 2000 BC. Can someone tell me what that machine is? We've come to more recent times, the 1800s, the 1940s, in fact, World War I and II. Has anybody seen that machine? Wow. I'm seriously amazed. Awesome. Because I didn't know that picture until I saw it earlier, right? I actually Googled the Enigma machine, found that picture, and put it down here. Excellent. Perfect. The Enigma Rotors machine, so I don't need to tell you what it's all about. Again, Wikipedia helped me here. It was used in World Wars I and II. The Brits, the Allies, the Brits and the Americans actually used this to decrypt German messages, and actually this kind of changed the course of the war in favor of the Allies. That's what happened. Wikipedia is there if you want to find out more. If you've done CISSP, this comes in the book, right? Sean Harris. Anybody who's seen it? Excellent. The same thing. So I referred to Sean Harris here. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is from these slides, CIA, right? It wasn't always that way. The focus of InfoSec has been shifting over the past few decades. Now that from 1944 is how a typical computer used to look like. Less in terms of processing power. You guys know this, I don't need to revisit this concept. They used to occupy an entire room, standalone systems with very few people with the knowledge to actually operate on them. And therefore, security, when the concept of security came in terms of technology or computing in those decades, it was primarily concerned with physical security of these machines. Nobody was bothered about the data on these machines, no matter what little data was there. I mean, when you think about it, that's what it was. I was more concerned about the machine than about the data on the machine. Today, what happened is, over the past few decades, with the advent of the personal computer, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, people that we have to thank, computers became people-friendly, intuition-driven, right? Pinch to zoom on your phones, everything, click, press, touch. All these have been more adapted to the human actions, a person's individual body, right? So that's what has happened over the past few years, decades rather. And therefore, computers are not so expensive anymore. They are a little, I mean, compared to the past, they're definitely not expensive. A common man can buy a phone today. Smartphone for 3,500 rupees, you get it on Flipkart. So no one's so concerned about the machines as such, it's only about the data. We started putting more and more data onto this. Again, these are all things you already know. There's nothing new that I'm telling you here. And today's context, these are the two things, when you look at things from an InfoSec perspective, these are the two vectors that all conversations tend to flow towards. Data security and data privacy. All right, so you know the concept of security. Everybody told me CINA. We're looking at how secure data is when it goes through its life cycle, where it is stored. Is it encrypted? Does it have to be encrypted? If you're encrypting it, how strong is it encrypted? Who has the access to the keys to decrypt it? What is the encryption algorithm that you're using? Same applies when you're transmitting the data as well. I'll come back to processing. When let's say, take the example of a bank, whether it's, again, State Bank of India, let's say. I'm just giving you an example. Whether it's core banking database. I log in through my phone and access my internet banking through my phone. My credentials, my passwords, how secure are they when they are transmitted over the internet and when they are authenticated by State Bank? That's the kind of data that people are concerned about. Where does it have to be transmitted? How secure is the transmission mechanism? What is the protocol that is being used? Processed, for example, an outsourcing company. Okay, I'm a bank in the US, let's say. I'm kind of partial to banks because we worked with a lot of banks in the past. So let's say I'm a US bank and I've outsourced some of my card processing activities to an Indian offshoring organization. The bank is fully certified in all security standards you can think of. As a hacker or as someone who's trying to get a little bit of insight into what happens inside the bank, my strategy would be, hey, let's look at the back doors. I know that this bank employs this offshore provider back in India or Philippines or wherever it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and hit this particular offshore service provider. Right? So I want to go back and do a little bit of recon, see what kind of data I can get in terms of this particular bank from this offshore service provider. So that is why service providers are being looked at, as you know, from a supplier management perspective or as a vendor perspective, in a lot more serious light by these kind of banks nowadays. So there's a lot of audits, there's a lot of regulations that are being passed on to service providers as well. You guys, people who are working, you must have seen this, right? So when it comes to processing of data, the kind of things that we're looking at is, we have 4 people in a development team who are sitting and developing an internet banking application for this particular US bank. Do they really need to see production data? Do they need to have access to the production database? The answer is most probably no, because when you're doing development, all you need is access to test data. Right? And how you generate your test data from production data, that is a totally different story altogether. So how data is processed, who has access to this data, and where? And when someone works from home, that's the last point there. I'm working from home because my company is cool, it wants to keep me, as a happy employee, so they give me the rights to work from home. I can connect to my client's environment from home. And I have people who are sitting at home with me. So they can peep over my shoulders. I trust these guys. The bank doesn't trust these guys. So these are the kind of questions that an organization has to look at when it's talking about data security. Privacy is a totally different concept, and we do have a couple more sessions on that, so I'll let the experts talk on that. For now, all I'll tell you is, it's about your ability as an individual, as an owner of your personal data, to control where the data is going to go, who has access to that data. So for instance, as we saw in the earlier session this morning, your entire life is online. I mean, you choose to put it there. It's a risk that you took, whether willingly or unwillingly, knowingly or unknowingly, but you did it at the end of the day. Your data is all out there. It's about, what is Facebook, for instance, doing with my data? Why did Facebook have to spend $18 million? $18 million to buy WhatsApp? Why? $18 billion. I think that is a most highly valued acquisition in the technology space, at least. Anybody thought about that? Okay, I know that is coming in one of the next sessions, so we'll probably cover it there. For now, I'll just let you know, you use your phone a lot more personally than you do your laptop. And people tend to trust WhatsApp a lot more than Facebook, because in WhatsApp, you're interacting with 1, 2, 3 contacts. In Facebook, you know that all your friends can see what you're talking about. So I think that is what gave the motivation to our friend, Facebook CEO, to actually go in for WhatsApp. Acquire WhatsApp at such a huge value. Right to be forgotten. Does that font look familiar? Perfect, Google. You must have heard about these recent conversations. People, especially from Europe, telling Google they have the right to be forgotten. That is their online life, whatever it is that Google reveals about my life online, has to be removed, because I have a right as an individual to get that removed. So I think people in Europe were successful in getting it done. People in the US and other regions are actually following up with Google about this. So essentially, it's about how much you can control your data being present in a particular area. So it's a very high level, I wouldn't say vague kind of topic. I'll leave it for the next few sessions that talk about privacy. Okay, so this is where we stand right now, okay, in terms of the previous slide. This is where we are right now. What we're trying to do in this session is look at where the future is heading. Okay, now those are all a couple of things. Self-driving cars, 3D printing, and wearables. A couple of examples that I've taken that actually show we as humans are letting technology. We saw a video yesterday, Mr. Pramod's session, actually it was an interesting video that showed how technology, when it takes over our lives, I'm not talking about the rise of the machines, which was one of the scenarios we saw yesterday, but that is also something that can happen. Or we let technology take over our lives, but we don't control to what extent the consequences can actually reach out. So what I see happening here is, as I said in the earlier slide, technology started becoming cheaper and cheaper and more accessible. The same thing is happening again. 5 years behind today, that is in 2010, if I was talking about drones, I'd be thinking about US military. Today, you just search for it on Google and this is what you get. A drone is considered to be one of the devices that makes invasion of privacy extremely easy. And there are cases, in Chennai also there was a case. Some guy flew a drone over a residential zone and he got into trouble with the cops. A drone is a device that can have a camera, it can have a gun. Okay, and these are things which are available on websites that I chose to, wipe out from my screen here, but the most common e-commerce websites that we have today, and they're really cheap. All you need is 2,600 rupees and a delivery address to have this thing shipped to your house. You can do pretty much whatever you want. If there's no regulation, if there's no control over this, this is an opportunity for you as a security professional to look into what you can do. So again, what we are saying here is, that's a picture of a lady in a self-driven car. Imagine sitting in a car like that and driving to work. This looks like the kind of future that we are headed towards. Kind of future where technology has complete control over us. Now, one scenario where I can think my life is entirely in the hands of technology is when I'm on a life support system. There are people in hospitals who are on a life support system, and we have given them a respirator. We are completely relying on technology to actually keep these people alive. When I'm a normal, or I wouldn't say normal, a healthy person, I wouldn't want to let technology take so much control over my lives.